Listen, I have been working security detail at the Kaltheron Arena for 16 cycles now, and I thought I had seen everything. Every blood sport, every execution, every supposed warrior who swaggered in thinking they were the apex predator of their corner of the galaxy. The arena floor had drunk the lifeblood of 1,000 species. Ventorians, Krill, even a Dax Prime champion once. All of them entered with confidence, all of them left in pieces, or not at all. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for the day they dragged in that human female. Her name was Voss, though we did not learn that until later, after the incident. After everything went sideways in ways that still make my secondary brain hurt when I try to process it. The manifest simply listed her as Cargo Unit 743, property of the Merchant Guild, sentenced to arena protocol for theft of medical supplies. Standard stuff. We get dozens of those per rotation. I was stationed at Gate 12 when they brought her through, shackled at the wrists and ankles with plasma restraints. She was small. That was my first thought. Not just human small, but genuinely tiny compared to most arena fodder. Maybe 5.5 feet tall by their measurement system, lean build, dark hair pulled back in what was left of a braid. Her jumpsuit was standard issue prisoner grey, torn at one shoulder, and she had a cut above her left eye that had scabbed over badly. Another one, my partner Vex grumbled, all 4 of his eyes rolling in that way he does when he is annoyed. Third human this cycle. What is it with that species and petty crime? They breed fast and die faster, I said, checking my datapad. Says here she stole antibiotics from a guild shipment. Claimed it was for colonists dying from infection. Vex snorted, which sounds like a garbage compactor choking on metal shards when you are Krelian. Noble theft is still theft. She will last maybe 2 minutes against whatever they put in there with her. The human, Kira. She just walked between her escorts, like she was taking a stroll through a garden. No crying, no begging, no screaming about mercy or justice or any of that nonsense we usually have to listen to. She just looked around, taking in the arena's holding cells with those disturbingly focused eyes humans have. 2 eyes, just 2. How they manage with such limited visual range is beyond me. Her escort, a Brutarian named Krolm who loved his job way too much, shoved her toward the prep cell. In you go, meat. Try to make it entertaining, yeah? Last human we threw in there just curled up and cried. Kira stumbled slightly but caught herself on the cell door. Then she turned, looked up at Krolm who stood nearly 8 feet tall and probably weighed 400 pounds of solid muscle, and smiled. Actually smiled. Thanks for the pep talk, big guy, she said, her voice carrying that weird musical quality human speech has. Real motivating. The sarcasm was thick enough to cut with a blade. I found myself almost liking her, which was a mistake. Rule number 1 of arena security: never get attached to the combatants. They are already dead. They just do not know it yet. Krolm's face, what you could see of it behind all those tusks and ridges, twisted into something resembling anger. He raised one massive fist like he was going to teach her some manners, but the shift supervisor's voice crackled through our comms. Combatant prep in 15 minutes. Get her processed and move on. We have 6 more to load before the main event. Krolm grunted, shot Kira one last threatening look, and lumbered off. I moved to secure the cell, running through my checklist. Remove restraints, check. Provide water ration, check. Explain arena rules, check, check, check. You get 5 minutes to prepare, I told her, probably more gently than I should have. Then the gate opens and you face whatever is on the other side. Survive long enough to impress the crowd. And maybe, just maybe, someone sponsors your freedom. Die quickly. Well, at least your suffering ends. Kira was testing the walls of her cell, running her hands along the smooth metal surfaces like she was looking for something. She stopped and glanced back at me. What are the odds? Honestly. I hesitated. Vex had already moved to the next cell, so it was just her and me. Of survival? For a human? In the Kaltheron Arena? I clicked my mandibles, the equivalent of a bitter laugh. 0.03%, and that is being generous. Whatever they put you against, it will be designed to kill you in the most spectacular way possible. Entertainment value, you understand. Sure, she said, like I had just told her the weather forecast. And what if I told you I have survived worse? I would say you are either delusional or lying, I replied. Every species thinks they are tough until they face a Kaltheron Arena special. We do not do fair fights here." She laughed then, this short barking sound that made my sensory stalks twitch. "Fair? Where I come from, fair is a fantasy. I grew up in the Detroit sprawl after the water wars. You know what we called dinner, whatever we could catch, kill or steal before someone else did. I was fixing broken water filtration systems with spare parts and prayer by the time I was 10 cycles old, your measurement. Got recruited by a colony ship because I could make impossible repairs with nothing but determination and spite. The way she said it, so matter-of-fact, so casual, like surviving impossible odds was just what you did on a Tuesday. That is very inspiring, I said, not even trying to hide my skepticism. But a Kaltheron battle beast is not a broken machine or a food shortage. It is 5 tons of engineered murder, with teeth the size of your forearm, and exactly one programmed instinct, which is kill. 5 tons, huh? Kira rolled her shoulders, testing her range of motion now that the restraints were off. I have lifted engine components heavier than that in 0G. Not saying it will be easy, but I have worked with worse weight ratios. I was about to explain that lifting something and fighting something were completely different skill sets, but the warning klaxon started blaring. Prep time over. Show time. Listen, I said quickly, lowering my voice. When that gate opens, move to your right. There is a weapon rack built into the arena wall, about 40 paces. Get to it fast, grab whatever you can, and try not to die in the first 30 seconds. That is the best advice I can give you. She nodded once, crisp and efficient. 40 paces right side, weapon rack. Got it. What is your name? The question caught me off guard. Combatants never asked our names. We were just the faces they saw before probable death. Threx, I said finally. Threx Vin Callus, if you want the full thing. Thanks, Threx. She moved to the gate, tension visible in her shoulders now. The reality was setting in, I thought. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. If I make it out, first drink is on me. You will not make it out, I said, but quietly, after she had already turned away. The arena floor was standard configuration for executions. Circular, about 200 meters in diameter, sand-covered floor stained a rusty brown from countless previous events, and walls too high and smooth to climb. The crowd was already filling the stands. Thousands of beings from across the sector come to watch the violence. The roar of their anticipation hit like a physical wave. I took my position at the security station, overlooking Gate 12, where I could monitor the feeds. Vex was already there, mandibles clicking as he browsed betting odds on his personal display. 5 credits says the human lasts 90 seconds, he said without looking up. No bet, I replied. What did they match her against? Vex pulled up the roster, and his eyes widened slightly. All 4 of them. Oh, someone upstairs. Really hates her. They are releasing a Kravix Prime. My blood went cold. Well, as cold as the Narian blood gets, which is more of a room temperature thing, but the sentiment stands. A Kravix Prime was not just a battle beast. It was the battle beast, genetically engineered on some hell world specifically for arena combat. 12 feet tall, armored hide that could shrug off plasma fire, retractable claws that could slice through reinforced steel, and a jaw that could bite through a shuttle hull. They had never, in the entire history of the Kaltheron Arena, put a lone human against a Kravix Prime. That is not an execution, I said, hearing the shake in my own voice. That is a demonstration. They are making an example of her. Probably stole from the wrong merchant, Vex agreed. Oh, this will be over quick. 30 seconds max. On the main display, Kira emerged from her gate into the bright arena lights. The crowd noise swelled. She paused, just for a moment, letting her eyes adjust. Then she moved, and I had to give her credit. She moved fast, straight toward that weapon rack I had mentioned, eating up the distance with long, efficient strides. She was about 10 paces out when the opposite gate, the big one, the one they used for the specialty beasts, began to open. The crowd went silent, that anticipatory hush that comes right before unbelievable violence. The Kravix Prime stepped out. Even through the monitors, the thing was terrifying. Matte black scales, muscles bunching and sliding under its hide like coiled cables, eyes that glowed a faint red in the arena lights. It saw Kira immediately, and its lips pulled back from teeth that would give you nightmares for cycles. Then it roared. I am not being dramatic when I say the sound rattled the security station. The bass note of it traveled through the floor, up through our chairs, into our bones. It was a sound that told every prey instinct in your body that you were about to die badly. Kira froze. For a single heartbeat, she stood absolutely still, and I thought, there it is. There is the fear. She is about to bolt or collapse or do whatever cornered prey does when it realizes the situation is hopeless. Instead, she reached the weapon rack, grabbed what looked like a short spear, and turned to face the Kravix. "Oh, you brave, stupid little creature," Vex whispered. The Kravix charged. When a 5-ton murder beast moves at full sprint, the ground shakes. Sand exploded up from each footfall. The crowd was screaming now, that bloodthirsty roar of anticipated carnage. It crossed half the arena in seconds, bearing down on Kira like an organic freight train. She did not run. She stood there, spear held loosely in a low guard, watching, calculating. The Kravix was 10 meters away. 5, 3. It lunged, jaws wide, going for the kill bite that would end this joke of a fight. Kira dropped, not backward, not to the side, but down and forward, sliding in the sand like she was stealing a base in one of those human sport games. The Kravix's jaws snapped shut on empty air where her torso had been a fraction of a second earlier, and its momentum carried it forward, unable to stop. As it passed over her, Kira drove that spear up with both hands, aiming for the gap between the creature's chest plates where the armor was thinnest. The weapon punched through hide and muscle, not deep enough to be lethal, but enough to hurt. The Kravix bellowed, more in rage than pain, and spun with frightening speed. Its tail, thick as a tree trunk and studded with bony protrusions, whipped around in a devastating arc. Kira somehow saw it coming and dove into a roll, but not quite fast enough. The tail caught her across the left side, and even from the security station, I heard ribs crack. She hit the arena wall hard, dropped to the sand, and for a moment did not move. 32 seconds, Vex said, checking his chronometer. Longer than expected, honestly. But the human was not done. She pushed herself up, one arm wrapped around her ribs, breathing in sharp gasps that I could see even from my position. Blood ran from the corner of her mouth. The spear was gone, lost when she had rolled. The Kravix stalked toward her, almost casual now. It knew she was injured, knew the fight was over. This was just the cleanup phase. Kira backed along the wall, and I realized she was moving toward one of the structural support pillars that jutted out from the arena barrier. Not trying to climb, that would be pointless, but positioning herself with the pillar at her back. The Kravix closed in, and its claw swept out in a strike designed to gut her from sternum to spine. Human physiology is weird. Their bones are relatively fragile, their skin tears easily. They do not have any natural weapons to speak of. What they do have, what the galaxy consistently underestimates, is reaction time honed by being prey animals on a death world for millions of years. Kira twisted, impossibly fast despite her injuries, and the claw scraped sparks off the pillar instead of her torso. While the Kravix was overextended, committed to the strike, she grabbed onto its arm, using its own limb as leverage, and hauled herself up onto its back. The crowd lost their minds. The Kravix thrashed, trying to shake her off, but Kira wrapped her legs around its neck and started punching. Not at random either. She was targeting specific points behind its skull, where the neural clusters would be on most species. "She is actually studying it while fighting it," I said, shocked. Vex made a choking sound. "That is not possible. She is doing technical analysis in combat?" The Kravix slammed itself backward into the arena wall, trying to crush the human against the surface. Once, twice, 3 times. I saw Kira's grip loosen, saw her cough up more blood, but she held on. On the 4th impact, she adjusted her position, got one arm around the creature's throat, and squeezed. "She is trying to choke it," Vex said, sounding like he could not believe what he was seeing. "Kravix have redundant breathing systems," I said. "That will not work." But Kira was not trying to choke it, I realized. She was holding on, keeping herself positioned at the one angle where the Kravix could not reach her with its claws or jaws. The creature kept slamming her into things, kept spinning and thrashing, but she adjusted with every movement, staying in that blind spot. The Kravix was getting tired. I could see it in the way its movements were becoming slightly less coordinated, slightly slower. 5 tons of muscle and rage requires a lot of energy to sustain. Meanwhile, Kira just held on, taking punishment that would kill most species but somehow still conscious, still calculating. Then the Kravix tried something new. It dropped and rolled, the whole mass of its body coming down on top of her. That should have been it. A 5-ton creature doing a barrel roll on top of a 120-pound human. Physics made that a non-survivable event. Except Kira let go at the last possible second and rolled in the opposite direction. The Kravix crushed sand, and before it could recover, she was on her feet, stumbling but upright, and sprinting, not away, but toward the creature's head. Its jaws opened for another bite. She dove straight into the creature's mouth. "What?" Vex said, his voice flat with disbelief. "What is she doing?" For 3 seconds nothing happened. The Kravix's jaws remained open, this human-sized lump visible in its throat. The crowd was on their feet, silent with confusion. Then the Kravix started gagging, thrashing. Its movements became panicked, uncontrolled. It was choking, actually choking on her, and she was doing something in there, something I could not see but could imagine. Fighting, even while being swallowed alive, she was fighting. The creature's movements became more desperate. It slammed its own head into the ground, trying to dislodge whatever was happening in its throat. Black blood started running from its mouth. Then, impossibly, Kira's hand emerged from between the creature's jaws, followed by her arm. She was pulling herself back out, covered in blood and digestive fluids, and in her hand was something that pulsed wetly in the arena lights. "Is that?" I started. "Its primary heart," Vex finished, his voice hollow. She ripped out its primary heart from the inside. The Kravix took 3 more steps, confused by the fact that it was already dead, and then collapsed like a building falling down. The impact raised a cloud of sand that obscured everything for a moment. When it cleared, Kira was standing next to the corpse, one hand still holding that gore-covered organ, the other wrapped around her ribs. She was covered head to toe in black blood, breathing in ragged gasps, and staring up at the crowd with an expression I could not quite read. The arena was absolutely silent. Thousands of beings, not making a sound. Then someone, somewhere in the stands, started a slow clap. Another joined, then another. Within seconds, the entire arena was erupting in noise that made the earlier roar sound like a whisper. Kira dropped the heart, swayed slightly, and then looked directly at the camera that fed to our security station. Looked right at me, somehow knowing exactly where I was watching from. She smiled, teeth white against all that black blood, and collapsed face first into the sand. "Medical team to the arena floor," I heard myself saying into the comm. "Combatant requires immediate attention. She is alive. Against all logic and reason, the human is still alive." Vex turned to look at me with all 4 eyes. "I need to change my betting strategy," he said weakly, "and possibly my entire understanding of human combat capabilities." I just nodded, watching as the medical team rushed out to retrieve Kira's unconscious body. Around me, every security monitor was showing replay after replay of the fight, and in the stands, I could see beings of every species frantically checking their datapads, probably trying to figure out what the hell they had just witnessed. A human, unarmed and injured, had killed a Kravix Prime in single combat, something that had never happened in the 200-cycle history of the Kaltheron Arena. And somewhere, in a holding cell that I would soon be assigned to guard, that same human would wake up, if she survived her injuries, which, given what I had just seen, she probably would. I had a feeling the next few shifts were going to be very, very interesting. Kira Voss spent 3 days in the medical wing, which honestly surprised everyone, including the medical staff who were used to treating arena survivors, of which there were not many. Dr. Helix, a 6-limbed Medarian with a temperament like a solar flare, gave me updates every shift because apparently I had become the unofficial liaison for our resident human miracle worker. "Her rib cage is a disaster," Helix told me on day 2, waving several appendages in agitation. 4 ribs fractured, 2 completely broken, internal bleeding that should have killed her twice over, and a concussion that would leave most species brain dead. Yet here she is, asking for solid food and complaining about the bed comfort. "Humans are built different," I offered, which was the understatement of the cycle. "Built wrong, you mean?" Helix grumbled. "Their healing factor makes no biological sense. The amount of scar tissue formation alone should compromise organ function, but her body just keeps patching itself together like some sort of self-repairing machinery." I had come to check on her at the end of my shift, partially because it was my job, mostly because I was curious. The whole arena had been talking about nothing else for 3 days straight. Footage of the fight had spread across the sector faster than a plague ship. Betting houses were in chaos. Someone had even started a merchandise line with her face on it, which seemed premature considering she was still technically arena property. When I entered her recovery room, Kira was sitting up in bed, wrapped in enough medical bandaging to supply a small hospital, working on something with her hands. As I got closer, I realized she had disassembled her IV drip regulator and was rewiring the components. "That is expensive medical equipment," I said. She did not look up. It was beeping wrong. Rhythm was off by 0.3 seconds. Drove me crazy, so I fixed it. Now it beeps correctly and also monitors 2 additional vital signs. "You are welcome. You improved our medical technology while recovering from nearly dying?" "Idle hands," she said, snapping the casing back together. The device beeped once, a pleasant harmonic tone that was definitely better than the previous annoying buzz. Besides, nearly dying is relative. I have had worse Tuesdays. I pulled up a chair, which was designed for my body structure and thus wildly uncomfortable, but sitting felt appropriate for this conversation. "The arena masters want to see you." That got her attention. She looked up, and I noticed her eyes were clearer now, less pain-clouded. Still that unsettling 2-eyed human stare, but focused. "Let me guess. They want to know how I killed their prize monster." "That, and they want to offer you a contract." Kira laughed, then immediately regretted it based on how she clutched her ribs. "A contract." "Right, because every girl's dream is to get nearly killed on a regular basis for entertainment value. The alternative is they send you back to the holding cells until they find something even worse to put you against," I said carefully. "Or they simply execute you for destruction of expensive arena property, which a Kravix Prime definitely qualifies as. The contract is actually the good option here." She was quiet for a moment, fingers drumming against the medical bed rail. Human nervous habit, I had learned. "What kind of contract?" "Champion fighter status. You would fight once per cycle, maybe twice if a special event comes up. In exchange, you get private quarters, decent food, medical care, and a cut of the betting profits. After 20 wins, they grant freedom and release from all prior criminal charges." 20 wins against things like that, Kravix? Probably worse, honestly. You set a precedent. Now everyone wants to see what else you can survive. Kira leaned back against her pillows, staring at the ceiling. "How many arena champions make it to 20 wins? In the last 50 cycles, 3. One was a Drevlian warlord with natural armor plating and regenerative capabilities. One was a cybernetically enhanced Krell mercenary with more machinery than biology. The third was a hive mind species that technically counted as one combatant, but was actually 47 organisms working in perfect coordination. And humans? You would be the first to try." I clicked my mandibles softly. "Look, you do not have many options. Take the contract, survive long enough to earn freedom, maybe actually live through this. Refuse, and they will make an example of you in ways that make the Kravix fight look gentle." She turned those unsettling eyes on me. "You are trying to help me. Why?" The question was fair. I had been asking myself the same thing. Because in 16 cycles of working arena security, I have never seen anyone fight like you did. Most combatants just die. Some fight back. You analyzed, adapted, and won against impossible odds. That deserves respect, even if your species is strange and your biology makes no sense. A smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. "We are pretty weird, aren't we?" "You have no idea," I said seriously. "Your species has been in galactic space for barely 3 generations, and already the xenobiology departments cannot agree on how you are still alive. Your homeworld has conditions that would be classified as a death world by any reasonable standard. Your healing factor borders on supernatural, and apparently you can survive being partially swallowed by apex predators. It is deeply unsettling." "Earth builds different," Kira said, echoing my earlier words with a grin that showed too many teeth. "Very predatory for a supposed prey species. All right, I will take the contract. But I want one addition. You are not in a position to negotiate." "Sure I am. I just gave them the most watched arena fight in decades. Betting profits are probably through the roof. They need me to keep that momentum going." She sat forward, serious now despite the pain it obviously caused. "I want access to the workshop facilities. Give me tools, materials, and time between fights. I will build things, improve things, Maybe even enhance some of your arena safety systems that frankly look like they were designed by someone who failed basic engineering. I considered this. Why? Because sitting around waiting to fight will drive me insane, and because if I'm going to survive 19 more of these death matches, I'm going to need every advantage I can build, modify, or jury-rig from spare parts. She held out her hand in that human gesture of agreement. Deal? I looked at her hand, then carefully extended my primary manipulator to grasp it. Her grip was surprisingly strong for someone held together mostly by medical tape and determination. Deal. I will present it to the arena masters. One more thing, she said as I moved to leave. That drink I promised you? Still good for it once I can stand without my ribs screaming. You gave me solid advice. 40 paces, weapon rack, right side. That made the difference. You made the difference, I corrected. I just pointed you in a direction. What you did after that was all human insanity. 2 days later, Kira was moved to the champion quarters, which were significantly better than the standard holding cells, private room, actual bed instead of a metal slab, and access to the communal areas where other arena fighters prepared between matches. She also got her workshop access, a converted storage room filled with salvaged equipment and materials that most species considered junk. She treated it like she had been given a treasure vault. I checked on her regularly, officially as part of my security duties, unofficially because watching her work was fascinating. She would take broken equipment, obsolete technology, random mechanical parts, and somehow create functional tools. Within a week, she had built herself a customized weapon that looked like a cross between a spear and a plasma cutter. How does that even work? I asked, watching her test the ignition sequence. Repurposed medical laser, reinforced with salvaged hull plating, powered by a modified energy cell from a broken cargo drone. She activated it, and a blade of coherent energy extended from the tip with a satisfying hum. Cuts through most organic and synthetic materials, retractable for close quarters, and the power cell is good for about 45 minutes of continuous use. You built a functional energy weapon from trash. One person's trash is another person's survival. Advantage. She deactivated the blade and set it aside. My dad was a salvage worker in the Detroit ruins. He taught me that everything has a use if you are creative enough and desperate enough. Usually I am both. Her first official champion fight was scheduled for the following week. The arena masters, riding high on the publicity from the Kravix incident, had arranged something they called a special event. Translation: they wanted to see if lightning could strike twice. They matched her against a Vexlock pack. 3 of them. Vexlocks are ambush hunters from a high-gravity world, each one about the size of a human but significantly stronger, with natural camouflage capabilities and pack tactics honed over millions of years of evolution. They do not fight fair, they do not fight honorably, and they definitely do not give their prey a chance. Perfect arena entertainment. I found Kira in the prep area an hour before the fight, running through what looked like stretching exercises mixed with some kind of combat form. Her ribs had healed enough for full mobility, though Helix had warned her that another serious impact could re-break everything. 3 versus 1, she said without stopping her movements. Could be worse. How could it be worse? Vexlocks hunt as a coordinated unit. They will separate you, flank you, and take you apart methodically. Could be 4 versus 1, she said with that infuriating human humor. Or they could be on fire. I tried to look on the bright side. There is no bright side to a Vexlock pack. She finished her routine and picked up her custom weapon. Then I will make one. That is kind of my thing, making bad situations slightly less terrible through applied stubbornness. The crowd for her second fight was even larger than the first. Word had spread beyond the sector. I heard that representatives from various mercenary companies were in attendance, along with military recruiters, xenobiologists, and at least one ambassador who really should have had better things to do. When Kira walked onto the arena floor, the noise was deafening. Half the crowd was cheering for her. The other half was cheering for her death. Both groups were equally enthusiastic. The Vexlock pack was released from 3 different gates simultaneously, a tactic designed to create immediate confusion. The creatures shimmered into near invisibility the moment they hit the sand, their natural camouflage adapting to the arena environment. Kira stood in the center, weapon ready, turning slowly, looking for what could not be seen. She is dead, Vex said from beside me at the security station. You cannot fight what you cannot see. But Kira was not looking. She was listening. Human hearing is not particularly impressive by most standards, but they excel at directional sound tracking. Some evolutionary thing about being hunted by ambush predators on their home world. The sand shifted slightly to her left. She spun and fired her weapon, the energy blade extending and slashing through empty air, except it was not empty. The Vexlock's camouflage flickered as the blade scored across its shoulder, and the creature screamed, a high-pitched sound that made my sensory stalks retract involuntarily. The other two Vexlocks attacked simultaneously from opposite sides. Classic pack tactic. Kira could not block both. She did not try. She dropped flat, letting both creatures pass over her, and as they did, she activated something on her belt. A pulse of electromagnetic energy radiated outward, and suddenly all three Vexlocks were visible, their camouflage systems completely disrupted. She built an EM disruptor, I said, shocked. From workshop scraps. That is cheating, Vex protested. That is engineering, I corrected. The Vexlocks, now visible and furious, regrouped for a coordinated assault. They were fast, faster than the Kravix had been, and they knew how to work as a unit. One fainted high while another went low, the third circling to cut off escape routes. Kira moved like water, flowing between their attacks with a grace that seemed impossible for a species with such a rigid skeletal structure. Her weapon became a blur, parrying claws, redirecting strikes, creating distance when she needed it. But she was not just defending. Every movement served dual purposes. Block a claw strike while positioning for a counter, dodge an attack while moving toward better terrain, defend while studying their patterns. 2 minutes into the fight, she stopped retreating and went on offense. She targeted the injured Vexlock first, the one she had tagged at the start. Wounded pack members become aggressive, make mistakes. It lunged at her with fury, overriding tactics, and she sidestepped, brought her weapon around, and took its head off in one clean strike. The other two Vexlocks hesitated. Pack psychology. Sudden death of a packmate causes momentary confusion. Kira used those 3 seconds to sprint toward the arena wall, not fleeing but positioning. The Vexlocks followed, splitting up to flank her again, exactly what she wanted. As they closed in, she triggered something else on her weapon, and the energy blade extended further, wider, becoming less focused but covering more area. She spun, and the blade carved through both Vexlocks simultaneously. Modified energy output, I realized. She had built in multiple configurations. Both creatures fell, cauterized wounds, still smoking. The entire fight had taken 4 minutes and 17 seconds. The crowd went absolutely insane. Cheering, stomping, the whole structure shaking with approval. Kira stood among 3 dead Vexlocks, weapon deactivating, and simply nodded to the stands like this was all routine. Then she looked up at the VIP box where the arena masters sat, and she smiled. Not a friendly smile, a challenging one. She was just getting started. Over the next 12 cycles, Kira fought 9 more times. Each fight was supposed to be her last. Each fight she won. A Thornback Ravager that could regenerate limbs. A pair of cyborg hunters with tactical analysis programs. A gravitational anomaly entity that barely qualified as alive. A Kaltheron berserker in full combat drugs. She beat them all. And between each fight, she built things. Improved arena safety systems that reduced staff injuries by 40%. Modified medical equipment that cut recovery time in half. Created training protocols that other fighters started adopting. She is not just surviving, I told Vex after her 10th win. She is changing this place. The arena masters are getting nervous, he replied. Nobody was supposed to make it this far this fast. She has 8 cycles before. They can legally grant her freedom. They are already looking for loopholes. That did not surprise me. The arena was a business, and Kira had become their star attraction. Letting her go meant losing their most profitable asset. I found her in her workshop that evening, working on something complex and mechanical. Make. You are aware they might not let you leave after 20 wins? Oh, I am counting on them trying something, she said without looking up. Why do you think I have been documenting everything? Every fight, every contract violation, every safety issue I fixed that they should have fixed cycles ago. I have been building 2 things here. Threx. A path to freedom and an insurance policy. Insurance policy. Back on Earth, we have a saying. If you cannot break the system, become too valuable to lose or too dangerous to keep. She held up what she had been working on, a data core packed with information. This contains evidence of about 47 violations of galactic labor laws, safety regulations, and sentient rights statutes. If they try to block my freedom, this goes to every media outlet, regulatory body, and legal authority in the sector. I stared at her. You have been building a legal case while fighting death matches? Multitasking, she said with a shrug. Also, it kept me from thinking too hard about the fact that I have been in mortal danger every few weeks for almost a cycle. Staying busy helps. Her 20th fight was announced with more fanfare than any previous event. The Arena Masters called it the Liberation Match, marketed it as her final battle, her chance at freedom. They matched her against something called a Void Wraith, an energy-based entity from dead space that could phase through solid matter and drain life force with a touch. Unbeatable, they called it, unmatched in arena history. The night before the fight, I visited her quarters. She was calm, sitting cross-legged on her bed, eating something from a ration pack that smelled vaguely toxic. Nervous? I asked. Terrified, she admitted, but terror is just another input to process. Fear means your brain is working, analyzing threats, preparing responses. I would be more worried if I was not scared. That is a very human perspective. We are a very human species, she said with a slight smile. Threx, I need you to do something for me. If I do not make it tomorrow, make sure that Data Core gets where it needs to go. Someone needs to know what happens in places like this. You will make it, I said, surprising myself with how much I believed it. Maybe, but just in case. She held out her hand again, that gesture of agreement and friendship. Thanks for the advice that first day. The weapon rack tip. It mattered. I grasped her hand. Thanks for being interesting. This job was boring before you showed up. The Liberation Match started at peak viewing hours, with the largest crowd the arena had ever held. Every screen in the sector was probably tuned in. Kira walked out to sound that was beyond noise, something that felt like physical pressure. The Void Wraith materialized at the opposite end, a shifting mass of darkness that hurt to look at directly. It did not move like a physical creature. It flowed, like oil through water, defying normal physics. Kira did not wait for it to attack. She had learned something in 20 fights. Initiative matters. She threw something, a device she had built, and when it reached the Wraith, it exploded into a field of intense light and electromagnetic radiation. The Wraith recoiled, its form destabilizing. Light and EM fields, I realized. She had researched its weaknesses and built a counter-weapon. The fight became a dance of physics and determination. The Wraith would phase toward her. She would deploy another light burst. It would try to drain her life force. She would ground herself with a device that redirected the energy. Every attack had a counter. Every counter had been pre-built, tested, and refined. 6 minutes into the fight, Kira stopped defending and went full offense. She had been herding the Wraith, I realized, moving it into position beneath one of the arena's massive lighting arrays. She triggered something on her belt, and every light in the arena focused on a single point, the exact space where the Wraith hovered. The entity screamed, a sound that existed in spectrums we could not normally hear. Its form began to break apart, unable to maintain cohesion under that much focused light energy. Kira had weaponized the arena itself. When the light finally dimmed, there was no Void Wraith, just scattered particles of energy dissipating into nothing. Kira stood alone in the center of the arena, exhausted, injured, but victorious. 20 wins, freedom earned. The crowd noise was beyond description. Approval, shock, awe, all blended into pure sound. The Arena Masters had no choice. Live feeds across the sector, legal contracts, and thousands of witnesses. They granted her freedom with smiles that did not reach their various eyes and faces. 3 days later, Kira left the arena as a free person. She had offers, dozens of them, mercenary companies, military positions, engineering firms, even a few entertainment contracts. She turned them all down. What will you do? I asked as I escorted her to the departure terminal. Final security duty, making sure she actually got to leave. There are colony worlds that need engineers, she said. Medical supplies that need distributing. Places where someone with my skills can help people instead of killing things for entertainment. She looked back at the arena one last time. I survived 20 fights, Threx. That is enough violence for one lifetime. You changed things here, I told her. The safety improvements, the protocols, Even the way other fighters approach combat. That legacy remains. Good. Maybe the next person who gets dragged in here will have slightly better odds. She handed me something, a small data chip, my personal logs, everything I learned about fighting, surviving, and building things from nothing. Give it to whoever needs it. At the gate, she paused. That drink I promised you? Rain check, I said, using a human phrase she had taught me. Something tells me our paths will cross again. Maybe, she agreed. Galaxy is big but also surprisingly small. If you ever need an engineer or someone to fight impossible odds, look me up. Then she walked through the gate and was gone. I returned to my security post, where Vex was waiting with an expression I could not quite read. Well, he said finally, that was unprecedented. That, I agreed, was extremely human. The arena continued its operations, but something had shifted. The fights were still brutal, the odds still impossible. But now there was a story that every combatant knew. A human female, barely 5.5 feet tall, who survived 20 death matches and walked out free. If she could do it, maybe others could too. And somewhere out in the galaxy, Voss was probably taking apart some critical piece of equipment and rebuilding it better than it had any right to be, because that was what humans did. They survived. They adapted. They built solutions from problems. And occasionally, when the galaxy put them in an arena and told them to die, they snapped its neck instead. Human stubbornness, it turns out, is the most dangerous weapon in the universe.